Okay, imagine this for a second. What if everything you believed about your own life, the very story of who you are, was built on a lie? And what if that lie started to completely fall apart? That's the powerful question at the core of this incredible short novel from Brazil, Longe das Aldeias, which translates to Far from the Villages. It's a story about war, memory, and the fictions we invent just to survive. It's a really stunning look at how a hidden past can echo through an entire life.
So the book kicks off with a single sentence. Yesterday, my mother returned to the ship. Now, you should know, there is no ship. There is no ocean. Right from the get-go, you're thrown off balance, dropped right into the head of our narrator. His world is one where his mother's memories are just collapsing. And this one line, it perfectly sets the stage for a story that's all about confusion, mystery, and a desperate, desperate search for the truth.
So let's meet our main character. This is Emmanuel's story. He's 17, a refugee living in Brazil with his mom, Maria, and his aunt, Mirna. Now, they escaped a war in a country that's never named, but that conflict has left these deep, invisible scars. And for Emmanuel, the biggest scar of all revolves around the father he's never met, a man who for him exists only as a myth.
And this right here, this is the story that has defined Emmanuel's entire life. For as long as he can remember, his father, Joseph, has been this larger-than-life figure. He was an enemy soldier, sure, but he fell in love with Emmanuel's mother. He's described as tall, dark-haired, with light eyes, a hero who was tragically kept from his family by fate. This whole narrative, it's patched together from his mother's stories, and it's the only real identity he has for his father and, in a way, for himself. But here's the thing. That heroic story, it's starting to crumble. The real conflict in this book is driven by his mother, Maria's mind. She's suffering from this severe, dementia-like illness, which is a direct result of the trauma she went through back in the war. Her memory isn't just fading. No, it's collapsing into what you could only call a ruin of broken images and ghosts from the past. And as his mom's mind falters, that clear, defining story of his father starts to get messy. It begins to contradict itself. She confuses time, people, places. Suddenly, the heroic tale of Joseph sounds a little different every time she tells it. And for Emmanuel, this is more than just confusing. It's absolutely terrifying. The bedrock of his entire past is basically turning into quicksand right under his feet.
So Emmanuel is caught in this emotional tug-of-war between his mother and his aunt. His mother, Maria, is just completely trapped in the past. It's like she's stuck in a mirror, seeing phantoms of her old life everywhere. Her love for Emmanuel is fierce, almost violent. But then you have her sister, Myrna, who is the total opposite. She's relentlessly practical. She learned the new language, got a job, she learned how to lie to protect her family and just move forward. So Myrna represents survival through practicality, while Maria represents survival through the power of a story.
So you might be asking, how does the author, Robertson Frizero, make us feel Emmanuel's confusion? Well, it's brilliant. He basically turns the novel itself into a kind of labyrinth. He crafts the story so that we, the readers, are figuring out the truth at the exact same pace as Emmanuel. We're meant to feel that same doubt, that same dawning horror, right alongside him. It's an incredible narrative trick.
He does this using what you could call an aesthetic of economy. The writing itself is sharp, it's precise, it's really lean. But more than not, he purposely leaves out the details. We never learn the name of the country. We don't know which war it was, or the clinical diagnosis for Maria's illness. And by stripping all that away, he forces us to focus on what's universal. You know, the trauma of war, the way memory works, and this desperate search for who we are.
And this is a totally deliberate choice. Frizero himself says that literature is a game of discovery. By leaving these gaps, he's inviting us, the readers, to be active participants, to feel like we're solving a puzzle right there with Emmanuel. You're not just being told a story, you're actually uncovering one. Okay, and this is where the structure gets really cool. The book runs on two timelines. The first one, Emmanuel's story in the present day, moves forward chronologically. Simple enough. But the second timeline, the story of what happened to his mother and aunt during the war, is told in reverse. It starts with their ship journey to Brazil and then peels back the layers one by one, going deeper and deeper into the past. Because of this structure, we arrive at the source of all this trauma at the exact same moment Emmanuel does, which makes the final reveal just absolutely devastating. And that brings us to the climax of the book. It's truly heart-stopping. All of Emmanuel's questions, and all of our questions really, are about to be answered. That carefully built myth of his heroic father,
is about to completely shatter, revealing a painful truth that's been held together by what the author calls a charitable lie. So after a lifetime of searching, of trying to see his father's face in his own reflection, Emmanuel finally corners his Aunt Myrna and asks for the real story. And the one question that's been driving this entire novel just hangs there in the air. Who was his real father? And the first piece of the truth is the hardest one to hear. That whole heroic story of Joseph, the enemy soldier who fell in love with his mother, it was a complete lie. It never happened. But you have to understand, this wasn't some cruel lie. It was a charitable lie, a fiction that his aunt created and his mother clung to like a shield. It was a story designed to protect Emmanuel from a truth they thought would destroy him, and to protect Maria from a memory that had already shattered her mind. And here it is, the devastating truth. Emmanuel wasn't conceived in love. He was conceived in violence. His aunt finally reveals that his mother, Marija, was a victim of the systematic rape that was used as a weapon in their country's war, a horrific tactic of ethnic cleansing. His very existence is a direct consequence of that trauma. So, what about Joseph? Was he even real? Yes, he was real, but he wasn't the father. In that moment of absolute horror, Joseph was the one enemy soldier who refused to participate in the violence against Moria. She saw this flicker of humanity in him, what she described as a boy in his eyes, and that one small act of decency gave her the will to survive. The memory of him wasn't a lie about a father, it was the truth about a miracle. He became a symbol of hope that made her survival, and therefore Emmanuel's entire life, possible. Wow. So after a revelation like that, how do you even go on? How do you build an identity for yourself when you find out your origin story is an act of unimaginable violence? The final part of this novel is about Emmanuel trying to do just that, rebuild his sense of self from the wreckage of his past.
And in this incredibly mature moment, Emmanuel comes to understand the impossible choices his family had to make. He finally sees that charitable lie not as some betrayal, but as what it was, a desperate, broken act of love and protection. He forgives his aunt, and maybe most importantly, he finally understands his mother.
Ultimately, Emmanuel's journey shows us that identity isn't just about where we come from, it's about the meaning we create from it. He learns that who he is isn't defined by the violence of his conception, but by his own capacity for forgiveness, for understanding, and for the courage it takes to build a future on top of a truly painful truth. And all of this leaves us with one last big question that kind of sticks with you. Sure, Longe das Aldeias is a story about a very specific trauma, but its theme is something we can all relate to. It really forces you to ask, how much of who you think you are is built on stories? Stories told to you by your family, by your culture, and maybe even the stories you tell yourself just to get by. It's a question worth thinking about.